What's going on, everybody? J-How here, and in this Diablo 3 Wizard build, we're going to go over an explosive build guide for you guys. That's right, explosive, because that's going to be the theme of this build as we take a look at Firebirds mixed with Chantodos. So sit back, relax, and let's check out what's going to be topping the leaderboards this season. So for the skills, you're going to be looking at Magic Weapon with Deflection, Arcane Torrent with Static Discharge, Archon with Teleport, Ice Armor with Crystallize, Teleport with Safe Passage, and Frost Nova with Bone Chill. For your passives, Blur, Audacity, Unstable Anomaly, and Evocation. So let's take a closer look at these skills. Magic Weapon with Deflection says when you perform an attack, gain a protective shield for 3 seconds that absorbs 4% of your life and damage. That's going to be huge because we instantly look right over to Arcane Torrent with Static Charge. This is going to be proccing very, very fast, and this is going to play into a lot of what you're going to do. So we'll get more into this, but this is basically to get the cooldown reduction on your Archon as well as to be able to stack up that in the meantime. You want to be able to get stacks up as quickly as you can, and when we get to the gear section, I'll go over exactly what that means. Archon with Teleport, because you want to be able to get into Archon mode and then to be able to seek out those elites. That's where the real damage comes in, and you also want to be able to have that mobility to move in and out and just dot as many people as you can to get max damage out of the fire skills you're going to be using. Next up, Ice Armor. This is just simply a defensive one. You're going to be in there, and you want to try and proc this, and there's 2 different ways to play this, or at least a couple different variations, but this does allow you to freeze and to increase your armor, and that does help quite a bit to stay alive. It stacks up to 3 times, and you'll see your armor gets increased by 20%. This is a big thing for you when you're in there because you're going to be taking a lot of damage. Taking a look at the next talent, Teleport with Safe Passage. Now, you can choose a different rune here if you like. I do like Safe Passage because you get 25% less damage. Now, at high greater rifts, you may or may not think that that matters because after a certain level, that 25% may not matter at all. So you might opt for something like Wormhole. But if you're looking to reduce some of that damage, go with Safe Passage here on Teleport. Now, here's one where people tend to vary. Frost Nova with Bone Chill. This is one where you're able to freeze enemies around you, and if you teleport in and freeze them and you're trying to basically keep everything from attacking you by getting in there, that is where Magic Weapon comes in with the Deflection, the Static Discharge, the Teleport with the Safe Passage, the Ice Armor. All of this comes into play. You can go here. There's another variation using Explosive Blast. You can choose which one you like because they're both going to benefit you differently. Taking a look at the passives, because you're going to be taking a lot of damage, especially when you deep dive in there. Blur, decrease damage by 15%. That's a huge amount. Next up, Audacity. You deal 30% additional damage to enemies within 15 yards. You're going to be diving in. Again, you want to be able to do as much damage and mitigate damage, so using Audacity here, no brainer. Now, here's the other one, Unstable Anomaly. You cannot go without this. If you can, you're living dangerously, but the odds of you dying, or at least proccing this, are going to be high. But you also take a look that you'll be having Firebird, so you have 2 free deaths before you actually die. So Unstable Anomaly is very nice to have there. Playing into this build, Evocation, reduce all cooldowns by 20%. This is a huge thing because you're going to be relying very heavily on cooldown reduction, and we'll go over some of the reasons why as we get into the gear section. So, taking a look at the gear, let's first look at the weapon and offhand. That's going to be Chantodo's, and this is a 2-piece set bonus, so you'll need both of these. Let's look at the set bonus, though. Every second, while in Archon form, you expel a wave of destruction, dealing 350% weapon damage to enemies within 30 yards. This doesn't sound like a lot until you read the next one. Every time you hit with an attack while not in Archon form, 350% weapon damage is added to the Wave of Destruction, stacking 20 times. And that goes right back to the main damage dealer that you're going to be using while not in Archon form, which is the Arcane Torrent with the Static Discharge. Because it procs so fast, it allows you to get these stacks up very, very quickly to get to those 20 stacks. It also resets the cooldown on your Archon to allow you to get to 20 stacks very quickly, go right back into Archon form, and do massive damage because that's where you're going to be doing it all. So this is very key when you talk about your positioning out of Archon form to be able to stack it up and to be able to get it back quickly. Now, when I was talking about resetting Archon form, and this is a little bit of a peek ahead, but you're going to be using the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac in your cube because that says reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. So if you're using this, you're going to be able to get it back quickly, very, very quickly, as well as you're going to have high cooldown reduction. Speaking of which, the main set that you're going to be using, of course, is the Firebirds, and you'll need 6 pieces here. You're not going to be using the offhand, so that's going to include the boots, pants, chest, helmet, shoulders, and gloves. And you want to be able to get cooldown reduction on your shoulders and your gloves if possible. It's not always necessary, but if you can get cooldown reduction and some variation of area damage, as well as to be able to have plenty of the other stats there as well, it's going to help you out immensely. And you'll also want to try and get cooldown reduction both on your weapon and your offhand. Those are going to help out quite a bit to be able to get your skills back around very quickly. You take a look at Archon coming back quickly. It's also nice to have Teleport around. It's also nice to have Frost Nova around. So those skills right there add to your survivability and your damage, which is why cooldown reduction is so highly prioritized. The other item that you will definitely need is Fazula's Improbable Chain. You automatically start with X amount of Archon stacks when entering Archon form. This is a huge boost to your damage, so this is a very nice one to have. That can roll anywhere between 40 to 50. Next up, the Compass Rose and the Traveler's Pledge. While moving, damage taken is reduced by up to 50%. That's nice. While standing still, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%. That's nice too. You'll actually find yourself using this in both manners. So having that there is a huge bonus to what you're going to be trying to accomplish. Now, the other ring that you're going to be using is the Halo of Arlise. This is the one where your ice armor now reduces damage from melee attacks by anywhere between 50 to 60% and automatically casts Frost Nova whenever you take 10% of your life and damage. So that helps out quite a bit when you're in there, in deep diving into that group. You're trying to basically mitigate a lot of damage by freezing them, and this is really going to help when you do get into those groups. And then taking a look lastly at the Ancient Parthan Defenders on your bracers. Each stunned enemy within 25 yards reduces your damage taken by 12%. This plays into what we just talked about. When you're in there and you can freeze everybody and you can get them stuck there, this is really going to help to what you're trying to do. So you can see where there's huge synergy, and every single piece of gear that you're going to have plays directly into this build. So you want to make sure that you have both sets, the Chantodos and the Firebirds, else this isn't really going to work. So you really have to make sure that you have every single piece here to really make this build shine. Now, taking a look at the Kanai's Cube. Now, this is one where I said, if you do opt to go with Explosive Blast, you're going to go with Orb of Infinite Depth. This is the one where each time you hit an enemy with Explosive Blast, your damage is increased by 5%, and it goes on here. It can stack up to 4 times, so you can get a huge damage boost if you do opt to use that. Now, if you do opt to go with Frost Nova, you're just going to place a Furnace in there and to be able to get that extra elite damage. Now, this is one of those builds to where you're actually going to be seeking out the elites. If we take a look at the Firebird set bonus, it says when you die, a meteor falls from the sky. This is that extra life I was talking about. But take a look at the 4-piece bonus. Dealing fire damage causes the enemy to take the same amount of damage over 3 seconds, stacking up to 3,000% weapon damage as fire per second. After reaching 3,000% damage per second, the enemy will ignite, burning until they die. So to be able to have multiple enemies burning is what really plays into this, because we take a look at the 6-piece bonus. Your damage is increased by 40% for each enemy that is ignited. So if you can go around and make sure and get these enemies lit up, that increases your damage quite a bit. But here's the huge one. Elites that are ignited increase your damage by 2,000%. You can only have one elite damage bonus active at a time. So when you talk about this build in particular and this set bonus, when you do get into that Archon form and things are burning around you, it makes really good use out of the fact that you're going to be able to go in, light the enemies up, find an elite, and then that's when the damage really starts to come in. The more you have, the more damage you do. Keep in mind that Archon does reset after a while, so you have to be sure and play this very specifically in the sense that you want to get in, you want to do damage, you want to light up a bunch of stuff, But at the same time, you're also going to run into the fact that you might have some issues if you don't kill the elites or you don't kill the enemies while you're still in that Archon form. So keep that in mind while you're using this. Now, going back to the cube here, the bonuses of Archon stacks now last for 20 seconds after Archon expires. That's what the Swami says, and that's the helmet that you're going to put in Kanai's cube. This is such a huge damage bonus that it's almost impossible to pass up. That extra 20 seconds, that extra damage that you get from what you were in while in Archon form is really going to help push your greater rifts. And then taking a look, as we already talked about, in the jewelry slot, the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. Reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. And when you talk about the fact that you want to be in Archon mode and you want to be able to stack that up very quickly with Arcane Torrent, by the time you get enough Arcane Torrent shots out, Archon should be on a short cooldown. If you have cooldown reduction on your offhand, on your weapon, on your gloves, and on your shoulder, and even possibly your ring or both of the rings, it's really going to help out the cooldown reduction. Now, I understand that sometimes gearing can be a little bit difficult to get cooldown reduction and all that, but you want very, very high cooldown reduction for this build. So if you can get it on a ring, you can get it on your weapon, which is where you can get up to 10% cooldown reduction. It's going to play into this build very, very much so, especially when you talk about getting into Archon form, being able to get those stacks up, and then doing that massive, massive damage. So, as I mentioned, you want to be able to get into Archon mode as quickly as possible, but you want to make sure and go in with as many stacks as you possibly can, which is 20. If you find yourself needing to activate this early to be able to avoid damage, or at least try and finish somebody off, then by all means, go for it. But the max damage, obviously, is going to be max potential, and see if you can rotate that over. Now, that's going to do it for this Diablo 3 Wizard Guide. Be on the lookout for more Diablo guides coming soon for Season 6 and patch 2.4.1. Be sure and send this out to your friends. Let them know that this is the most explosive build, both figuratively and literally, in Diablo 3 heading into patch 2.4.1 in Season 6. And let me know in the comments below what you think of this build, obviously with Archon making a return and Firebirds making a return with it. Let me know how you feel about this build and whether this fits your playstyle, or you're going to opt for possibly another Delsere's build. And if you like the build or you like the video, feel free and hit that like button as well. Till next time, guys, happy hunting. See you again.